So we're back with the MAX49. I'm Mike from Akai Professional, and in this video we're going to be talking about the sequencer. So the MAX49 has a built-in 32-note step sequencer. You can turn on any of the steps using these tact switches here. You can change the pitch of each step by using the touch faders. There's LEDs under there that indicate where you are in your scale. Your on and off over here for the sequencer allows you to turn your sequencer on or off. And right now I have the MAX49 slaved to Ableton. So the way you select that is you just go to Global and you cursor over until you get to clock source, and you use this encoder to choose external. You push it, and now the clock from Max is slaved to live. So I'm going to go ahead and start my sequencer, but since I'm in external, it's not going to run. It's going to wait for a command from Ableton to start running, and I only have one step active on my sequence. And it's an 8-step sequence that I've got running right now. I'll show you how to create more steps in a second. So let's go ahead and fire up live. So you can see that step each time the sequencer rolls by it, it plays it. We'll go ahead and turn on a couple more. And if we wanted to create more steps, all you do is you hit Edit and Sequence Select, and the first page that comes up tells you the amount of steps that are in your sequence. So we'll go ahead and set it to 16. So this next button here in my bank selection are steps 9 through 16. So those are already all on. Turn a few of those off. So we'll go ahead and start changing the pitch of each of these steps. So we'll set them all to middle C. So you can do some real fun things by just kind of dragging your hand across here. We'll turn all the steps on in the second set. So that's how you can very quickly dial in some different pitches, turn steps on and off. To change the time division for your sequencer, you just choose time division right here, and there's your 8 options from quarter notes all the way up to 32nd note triplets. The sequencer in MAX49 allows for 4 sequences per pattern, per preset, I'm sorry. So the way you select your different sequences per preset is just by either hitting sequence select and hitting any of these 4 MPC pads, or just going back to your program and cursoring down to the sequence field and using this encoder. The way it works is once a sequence plays out, whatever next one is on deck ready to play, it'll roll out as soon as it reaches the end of the steps. So if I want to further edit my sequence, I can go into Edit, Sequence Select, and I can choose different scales. I can change the MIDI channel, so maybe my track in live with a different synth on it, I want it to be different than what's on the keyboard, or obviously different from my pads. But I can also go ahead and turn on what's called key shift, which allows you to transpose your sequence using the keyboard here. The way you turn that on and off is you just hit Edit and Sequence Select and cursor over to the next page that has the key shift field, and you just turn it on with the encoder, and now key shift is on. So what's going to happen is my 4-step sequence that I have here running, I'm going to be able to transpose it up and down, much like an arpeggiator, but a little bit more dialed in, because I can now change the notes of each step in the sequence. So I'll go ahead and start up live. And key shift is on now, so I'm just going to go ahead and play around with some different keys. Go back to MIDI and do some filtering. And I'll go back to my sequence note and move around some of the steps notation. And I can go ahead and add more steps by just going to Edit, Sequence Select, and turning up the amount of steps. And key shift is still going to work with from 1 step to 32 steps. So it's a very cool way to transpose your sequence and play along live to Ableton, or if you're playing in a band, you can go ahead and drive very cool arpeggiated style sequences from the keyboard itself. The MAX49 also supports control voltage output and gating, so any of your pre or non-MIDI modules can then be sequenced with the step sequencer here. And you could slave the clock of the Max to something like Ableton, and now you have everything locked in together. So this step sequencer is a very elegant sequencer. It's very familiar to anybody that's used any of the step sequencers that have existed for ages, but it's very nice that it's built into a MIDI controller. The LEDs behind the touch strips are very cool for dialing in your different notations per step. So that's the step sequencer in the MAX49.